Some truths don't arrive like revelations. They arrive like quiet, unwelcome visitors, shaking the foundation beneath what you've always believed about yourself. You think you're unreadable, that you've hidden your cracks behind confidence, masked your wounds with laughter, buried your silence in noise. But the people who were truly paying attention, they saw through it all. They heard the hesitation you dressed up as certainty. They felt the sorrow behind your grin. They watched you perform, not because you were dishonest, but because somewhere along the way, you learned that performance was safer than presence. Real recognition never comes with fanfare. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't scream, "I see you." It watches. It remembers. It waits. It doesn't demand that you speak. It listens to the space between your words, because that's where your truth has always lived, unspoken, but never invisible. You see, we were never taught how to be seen. We were taught how to impress, how to adjust, how to blend. No one ever explained that being truly witnessed doesn't require volume or visibility. It requires vulnerability. It requires stillness. And that's terrifying. Nietzsche didn't study people to master them. He studied what happens when we don't notice them at all. When we fall in love with the illusion someone presents. When we mistake survival mechanisms for personality. When we confuse the role someone plays for who they truly are. This isn't about psychological tactics. It's not a lesson in manipulation or decoding body language. This is about subtle perception. The kind of perception that doesn't stare, but observes. That notices the shift in breath when a subject becomes too personal. The pause before a confession that never comes. The echo in a laugh that tries too hard to be light. Truth lives there, in the gentle betrayals of the mask. And here's the part no one wants to admit. You've been read too. Not once, not accidentally, continuously, quietly. There are people who carry your truth in their memory without ever confronting you with it. Not because they want to expose you, but because they recognized you, even when you couldn't recognize yourself. Most people aren't lying. They're protecting. Protection looks like confidence. It looks like competence. It looks like control. But at its core, it's just a camouflage, an elaborate design to keep the raw parts of us tucked away. And the longer we wear it, the more we forget it's not who we are. Language itself is a mask. That's what Nietzsche taught. We don't speak to reveal. We speak to be accepted. Every word, a step in the dance of belonging. Every story, a rehearsal. Every "I'm fine" in armor. We're not trying to be dishonest. We're just trying to be safe. But words can only carry the truth so far. The rest leaks out in contradictions, in nervous hands and artificial stillness, in eyes that look away at the wrong time, in stories that change depending on who's listening. The truth doesn't shout, it slips. Once you understand this, the world turns transparent. The loud become fragile. The rigid become scared. The ones who seem most put together start to unravel in your awareness, not because they're broken, but because their coping mechanisms can no longer hide in plain sight. People aren't puzzles. They're echoes, reflections of pain, shaped by history, molded by childhood, reinforced by fear. And once you stop taking things personally, you begin to see the patterns. What hurt you becomes understandable. What confused you begins to make sense. Reading people isn't about education. It's about presence. You don't need to be trained. You need to stop listening for what people say and start noticing what they avoid, what they deflect, what they deny with too much effort. Nietzsche said it best: people aren't hiding from you. They're hiding from themselves. And the deeper the person, the more elaborate the mask. Masks aren't worn out of deceit. They're worn because we learn, early and painfully, that the unfiltered self is rarely welcomed. Too sensitive, too intense, too curious, too bright. And so, we dim, we dilute, we trade truth for tolerance, and we call it adulthood. But the truth has a strange persistence. It finds a way to bleed through, in the way someone freezes when asked about the past, in how their laughter falters in solitude, in the silence they can't sit with, in the smile that doesn't quite reach the eyes. Contradiction is not failure, it's revelation. The person who speaks of peace but is perpetually restless, the one who preaches detachment but aches to be seen, the one who says they don't care, yet chases validation like oxygen. That's not hypocrisy. That's the mask unraveling. And if you pay attention, not with judgment, but with stillness, you'll see it. You'll feel it. Beneath every performance is a person who is terrified that their truth is too much. But the irony is this: the truth, when finally witnessed, is never too much. It's always just enough. So stop trying to be unreadable. You never were. You don't need to be. Because being seen, truly seen, isn't the threat. It's the beginning of freedom. There's a profound awakening that begins the moment you stop placing your faith in masks, not just the masks others wear, but the countless ones you yourself have donned over time. True clarity does not arrive when you simply learn to read the facades of others. It begins when you stop denying your own role in the grand theater of disguise. Understanding people is not a form of sorcery, nor is it a mystical gift reserved for a select few. It is not a secret sixth sense bestowed on the enlightened. Instead, those who truly perceive others have cultivated an art of attention, an ability to notice what slips beneath the radar of most. They recognize the patterns, the subtle echoes, the repeated gestures that reveal the hidden chapters people live but rarely confess. This is why human behavior, while infinitely complex, is often painfully predictable. Not because we are shallow, but because we are haunted by unfinished narratives we endlessly replay. You may hear someone say, "I just have a feeling about them." Yet the most insightful observers don't trust vague instincts. They rely on evidence, tiny, persistent signals repeated across words, moods, and silences. It begins in the shifts of tone, the barely perceptible hesitation before assent, the fragile lift in a voice straining to sound confident but faltering beneath the weight of doubt. Then contradictions surface. The so-called easygoing friend who can't resist correcting every detail. The man who dismisses status, yet can't resist dropping famous names. The woman who extols independence while secretly craving to be chosen. These are not accidental slips. They are symptoms of deeper undercurrents. Timing also betrays the truth. Those awkward pauses when personal questions arrive. The nervous repetition meant only to fill empty space. The abrupt topic changes when conversations brush too close to the core. These moments are not flaws. They are fault lines where the polished act cracks and the authentic self begins to emerge. The most perceptive don't seek the loud or the obvious. They look for what is off, what jars the rhythm. They aren't fixated on details alone, but are attuned to emotional fingerprints, the unconscious habits people don't even realize they reveal. Clarity is not a magical insight, nor is it pure intuition. It is cultivated discipline. It is pattern recognition. It is the patience to remain silent long enough to witness what others desperately try to conceal. Once this ability takes root, life ceases to feel chaotic. The unexpected blindsides fade away. The mask each person wears begins to resemble fragile glass, translucent and vulnerable to the slightest touch. These realizations are not tools to wield against others, but weapons to dismantle your own illusions. Enzi's study of humanity was not an exercise in judgment. It was an endeavor to see beyond the surface. And what he uncovered was far from comforting. 1. Every mask is not forged to deceive, but to endure. What you observe is never the whole person. It is the version that has survived rejection and pain. The louder the display of confidence, the more delicate the soul beneath. 2. The traits we despise in others often mirror what we refuse to confront within ourselves. When you mock arrogance, you might be masking your own insecurities. When you scorn the fake, reflect on your own performed roles. Criticism is a mirror, tilted to avoid our own reflection. 3. Silence shouts louder than words ever could. Truth seeps through the pauses, the hesitant delay, the weary sigh, the smile forced and brittle. Avoidance is confession. What is hidden is often the loudest message. 4. Before lies to others, there is self-deception. People do not merely pretend for manipulation's sake. They first rehearse denial in their own hearts. I'm fine. I've moved on. I don't care. These are the lies they first believe to survive. 5. Criticism rarely reflects objective analysis. It is autobiography, a revelation of wounds and fractures within. Every complaint told is a story of personal pain. 6. Confidence is often a carefully constructed costume for guilt. Those who appear most assured are frequently the ones burying unforgiven parts of themselves beneath a veneer of certainty. 7. Exaggeration is a beacon for hidden insecurity. Declarations like "I never care," "I'm always happy," or "I don't need anyone" loudly betray the fears lurking underneath. 8. The craving for control arises from internal chaos. Micromanagers are not symbols of strength. They are captives of their own fears. Controlling others is an easier battle than confronting the turmoil within. 9. Loud morality frequently masks concealed superiority. The more vehement the virtue proclaimed, the more likely it is a shield hiding unacknowledged flaws. Genuine goodness whispers quietly. Pretense screams insecurity. 10. Ultimately, people don't fear pain itself. They fear being truly seen. Vulnerability is not dangerous because of physical or emotional hurt. It is dangerous because it threatens the fragile identities we have painstakingly built. To be exposed is to risk the death of the ego. In the end, these truths invite us not to judge but to understand, not to condemn but to awaken. To read others is to glimpse the masks they wear, and to recognize the masks we ourselves have worn all along. Only then does true clarity begin, when the dance of illusion finally gives way to the quiet light of authentic being. 11. The things people defend with the greatest passion are often the very things they doubt most. When someone goes out of their way to over-explain their beliefs, don't be fooled. They aren't convincing you. They're desperately trying to convince themselves. 12. The loudest voices in the room, the ones craving attention and recognition, are not simply vain. Beneath that constant need to be remembered lies a profound terror, the fear of being forgotten, invisible, irrelevant. 13. Envy rarely admits itself directly. Instead, it cloaks itself in hatred. When someone attacks you, it's not truly disdain they feel. It's the painful longing for what you embody, but secretly believe is beyond their reach. 14. People don't argue or defend opinions out of pure logic. Every strongly held belief is rooted in past wounds, scars that shape the way reality is interpreted. Behind every conviction lies an unhealed pain. 15. Childhood isn't a distant memory that fades with time. It's a recurring echo. The adult who dominates conversation was once silenced. The woman who masks her feelings was once punished for showing them. Our behaviors are living biographies. 16. Those who cling rigidly to their worldview do so to keep their fragile sense of self intact. Flexibility is true strength, while dogmatism is fear shouting to be heard. 17. Independence can be a disguise for desperation. When someone declares they don't need anyone, listen closely. It often means they've given up on being chosen. Isolation is not always strength. Sometimes it's exhaustion dressed as pride. 18. Patterns in behavior are honest confessions. You don't need words to understand who someone is. Their reactions to silence, their habits of withdrawal, the company they keep. These reveal the scars they replay, time and again. Nietzsche never shared these insights to give you tools for manipulation. His intention was to help you distinguish between noise and truth, between facade and essence, between trauma and identity. Once you see these patterns clearly, people stop being enigmatic puzzles. Every laugh, every silence, every abrupt change in topic, each one is a story, an imprint, a hidden wound. The common error is to believe behavior is random or rational. NZ understood the truth. People don't act from logic, but from fear. Arguments aren't born of confidence, they're born of insecurity. Boasting isn't pride, it's a shield against invisibility. And silence is less a sign of calm and more a refuge learned long ago. So the question is never simply what someone says, but why? The person who interrupts because they want to be heard was once unheard. The cynic who mocks emotions was once told to suppress theirs. The distant friend who never asks how you are was raised in a world where attention was a scarce luxury. None of this happens by conscious design. It's survival on autopilot. Beneath intellect, beneath perfectionism, beneath the mask of control lies fear, the fear of being seen as flawed, guilt for what's been lost or left behind, shame for the parts of ourselves we had to bury just to survive. This truth isn't spoken, but it shows itself in the quickness to correct others, the grip on structure, the shutting down when intimacy arrives. If you look beyond the surface, you'll realize behavior isn't a message. It's a shield built around wounds too deep to face. When you stop reacting to what's shown and start asking, what pain does this protect? You don't just gain insight, you gain freedom. The world softens, and anger, coldness, withdrawal, they stop feeling like attacks against you. Because in the end, it was never truly about you. In this relentless era of relentless performance, we find ourselves ceaselessly playing roles, online, at work, even within the quiet intimacy of our closest relationships. Life unfolds on a vast stage, where every Instagram post, every casual "I'm fine" text, every carefully chosen outfit, every opinion voiced, every delayed response, none of it escapes the subtle choreography of performance. Yet long before the age of filters and followers, NZ saw this truth with piercing clarity. People do not live as their true selves. They live as the versions they believe others will accept. And therein lies the paradox. We often think others are hiding from us, but in truth, most are hiding from themselves. Look closely. You see the man who incessantly boasts about his strength, not out of pride, but out of a deep fear of being perceived as weak. The woman who floods social media with inspirational quotes about healing, while secretly numbing herself to real feelings that she has long denied. The friend who drowns every silence with relentless jokes, desperately avoiding the memories that silence threatens to awaken. These people are not false, they are frightened. Terrified that if they remove the mask, they will be abandoned, rejected, rendered invisible. So they craft their kindness to win admiration, brandish their beliefs as shields of power, and parade their independence to disguise the loneliness they refuse to acknowledge. The cruelest irony is this: they often don't realize they are doing it. You ask, "How are you?" And they smile, a smile that doesn't reach their eyes. Their jaw clenches tightly. Their shoulders hold a tension they cannot release. Their laughter comes a beat too late, a fraction too forced. They are not trying to deceive you. They are protecting the self they have painstakingly constructed. The strong one, the healer, the unbothered, the spiritual, the always in control persona that feels safe in a world that rewards illusion over honesty. Yet truth, like water, slips through even the smallest cracks. It leaks in subtle deflections when topics touch too close, in over-apologies for the smallest missteps, in laughter too loud, as if volume could silence the fracture beneath. These quirks are not mere habits. They are confessions cloaked in performance, silent cries of an ego terrified of exposure. As life's pressures mount, from grief, from loss, from the relentless march of time, the performance unravels. And in those fleeting moments, the veil lifts. A sigh escapes before it should. A pause lingers just a second too long. Confidence wavers and quiet falls like a shadow. Eyes glisten before the sentence completes. Breath catches as if holding back the truth. This is not weakness. It is the soul, surfacing, brief and unguarded. Because the truest self is never the mask put on for others. It is the essence revealed in the moments when performance falters. If you are attuned to these shifts, if you sense the subtle fractures in a room before words are spoken, you are more than just observant. You are witnessing a sacred unveiling, the part of someone they have yet to meet themselves, buried beneath layers of survival, identity, and longing for acceptance. And once you glimpse this truth, there is no returning to ignorance. Reading people ceases to be an exercise in judgment. It transforms into an act of compassion. For when a mask cracks, what you see is not a flaw, but an invitation to witness their true humanity. There is a moment, quiet, sudden, and profound, that arrives unannounced. You listen as someone boasts, complains, or postures, and for once, you do not respond. You do not take offense, nor feel compelled to defend. Instead, you see the rhythms, the pacing, the hollow confidence, the silence that screams. And suddenly, it becomes clear. This isn't about you. It was never about you. The coldness, the arrogance, the desperation that once stung, now soften into understanding. You recognize them as wounds armored in defense. Not weakness, but survival masquerading as dominance, silence, or virtue. With this revelation, something irreversible unfolds. Empathy arises, not the shallow, performative kind, but a deep, aching compassion born of grief and shared human struggle. Because once you see what others are truly fleeing, the guilt hidden behind boasts, the fear masked by control, the sorrow behind silence, you stop reacting to the facade and begin acknowledging the pain that forged it. This was Nietzsche's gift, not a weapon to manipulate, but a lens to see clearly. The greatest danger lies not in lies told to deceive, but in lies believed until they imprison the self, and then expecting the world to play along. Without this vision, we become ensnared in the theater, chasing approval from the insecure, fearing rejection from the disconnected, feeling diminished beside those quietly breaking inside. But when clarity comes, everything shifts. Rejection no longer wounds, for it reveals a reflex born of pain, not truth. Conflict no longer entices, for drama masks disorder, not danger. Confidence no longer seduces, for loudness often shouts fear. You begin to see the dynamics at play, no longer reacting to raw emotion, but perceiving the deeper currents beneath. And in this space, confusion dissolves. You stop asking, "Why are they attacking me?" and start wondering, what part of their soul hurts so deeply that this is their survival? In that clarity, anger fades, for you no longer battle reality or carry the burden of another's trauma. You do not grow colder. You become unshakable, not through distance, but through awakening. Awake to the architecture of behavior, the patterns beneath personas, the truth that most people are not threats, they are frightened souls. And once you see this, the fight subsides. You choose understanding over conflict, because to see clearly is to dissolve manipulation, release resentment, and reclaim your own power. You were never learning to read others. You were remembering something ancient, something forgotten. The truth was always there. You were simply never taught how to perceive it. People tell their stories in every gesture, contradiction, and silence. Now you know this. Now you see. What masqueraded as arrogance was fear. What stung as rejection was protection. What pierced as offense was never truly about you. You are no longer just reading people. You are reclaiming awareness of patterns that have always existed, waiting only to be recognized. And here lies the paradox. The more clearly you see others, the less you feel compelled to defend yourself. Confusion fades. You stand beside them, not above, sharing a vision of what they cannot yet face. This journey is never one of judgment, but of awakening to the wounds beneath perfection, the vulnerability beneath armor, the humanity behind every act. If you have ever felt misunderstood, misread in your silence, your strength, your tenderness, now you understand why. Others, too, were wearing masks, unable to see beneath the surface. But Nietzsche knew this best. True power is not in remaining unreadable, but in being truly seen and still chosen. That is not weakness. That is the highest courage. So remember this. You were never truly hidden. They always knew who you were. And now, at last, so do you. If this exploration has stirred something within you, share your thoughts in the comments or simply your presence. Thank you for walking this path with us today. If this journey has stirred something within you, reflection, awareness, even clarity, know that you are not alone. Until next time, take care of your energy and honor your intuition.